All right, if you're worried about audio, I kind of am too, but that's why we're in this together. We just got this feed out of Ohio. We're waiting for Donald Trump to take the stage. I am waiting to see if our source out there, and I'm moving around, so my audio is going to be fade and come back. I'm waiting to see if the source out there just hasn't turned the microphone on yet. This is Kinsey with ABC 15. If you're a regular, you're familiar. If not, hi, nice to meet you at Kinsey ABC 15 on Twitter. We are waiting for Donald Trump to take the stage in Ohio. He's likely going to have some rebuttals to Hillary Clinton's impromptu little press conference that she gave right in front of her airplane earlier today. She was reacting to Matt Lauer and Donald Trump's event last night. It was a bit of like a town hall that they did, and she line by line went through Donald Trump's statements and kind of ripped him to shreds. So I'm sure we're going to hear him react to that, react to some of what she said to Matt Lauer last night. There was a lot of talk about her email scandal, and a lot of people are saying that she did not worm her way out of it, that it didn't make a lot of sense. So something to look forward to out of Ohio this morning. Hopefully we're going to get our audio here pretty soon. Thank you so much for your patience, and I'm going to work to bring you that. But we should have that at any moment. And again, this is Donald Trump about to take the stage in Ohio.
She stood in the street, smiling from her head to her feet.
It's bigger than us. And he says it with the kind of humility that we so admire in leaders, and I admire in my running mate. America's choice has never been clearer, I believe. The most straight-talking candidate since Ronald Reagan is running against one of the most dishonest candidates ever. Let me say, as I stand in this hallowed place, the American people picked a bold truth teller in 1980, and I know they're going to elect a bold truth teller in 2016. Now, these challenging times, let me reflect on the policies and then I'll close. These challenging times bear a striking similarity, I believe, to the time America faced in 1980. Then, as now, we stand at a fault line of history. An economy in decline, joblessness stretched as far as the eye can see, alarming social upheaval, and an America pushed around abroad and full of self-doubt at home. We need smart and decisive leadership to fix America's problems while there's still time. Because truth be told that in many respects, elites in both political parties, then as now, have failed to give us government as good as our people, but that's about to change again. So how will it change? Well, everything begins with security. Americans of every background recognize the common dangers that we all face. This week, it will be 15 years since 9/11. It's hard to believe. The threats and dangers have not receded. In fact, as you learned in shocking and heartbreaking tragedy here in California, they are closer and more serious than ever before. During a Trump presidency, I can assure you, we will restore the arsenal of democracy. We will restore the alliances that keep us strong and secure. And we will have a commander-in-chief, as you heard last night and heard yesterday, who will take those resources and those new alliances, and we will hunt down and destroy those who threaten our people and inspire those who would bring us harm. Donald Trump, like Ronald Reagan, will rebuild America's military. It's extraordinary to think that since 1991, our active duty armed forces have diminished from 2 million to just 1.3 million today. Our Navy has shrunk from a fleet of over 500 ships down to 272. The Air Force is roughly 1/3 smaller. The armed forces deserve better. Like Reagan, Donald Trump knows that we can only have peace if America is strong. And on day one of a Trump administration, Donald Trump, as he announced yesterday, will submit a new budget to rebuild our military, an active army of 540,000 soldiers, as the Army Chief of Staff says he needs. He will build a Marine Corps based on 36 battalions, a Navy of 350 surface ships. Our Air Force will have at least 1,200 fighter aircraft. We will modernize our naval cruisers, enforce our classification rules, command relevant departments to conduct a thorough review of cyber defenses, and America will once again be known as the arsenal of democracy. As the proud father of a United States Marine, let me promise you this. Our new Commander-in-Chief will support our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines with the resources and the training they need to get the job done safe and come home to us. It's probably why so many military families are supporting this campaign. It's probably why so many veterans make their way to Trump-Pence rallies. around the United States. In fact, could I just ask any men and women who've worn the uniform of the United States of America, could you stand, or if you're able, or raise your hand and just allow us to show one more installment of appreciation? Thank you for your service. A strong military and a strong America, Ronald Reagan knew, makes for a strong America in the world, an America that the world takes seriously. Donald Trump and I know what Ronald Reagan knew, and that is America needs to be strong for the world to be safe. Foreign policy record of this administration has weakened America's place in the world. It's extraordinary to think of the policies of this administration and of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. To take a picture of the Middle East from the day they took office and look at a map of the Middle East today, it almost doesn't look like the same place. Civil war in Syria, the rise and rule of the ISIS caliphate, a civil war in Libya, and terrorist forces that have overrun the hard-fought gains that were secured in the last Republican administration by our soldiers when this administration took office. Iraq, Libya, the wider Middle East, the rise of greater and more emboldened Russia, a more emboldened China, its activities in the South China Sea, Russia's interventions in Ukraine. It all has a vague familiarity to it from those days in the 1970s. Then, as now, there were examples of monumental bad judgment. And also, there were examples that demonstrated that truth of history that Reagan knew, that Donald Trump knows, that weakness arouses evil. And weak foreign policy by the United States of America emboldens our enemies, abandons our friends, and those days are over, starting November the 8th. But similar to those times as well is the times that we live in our economy. The last 7.5 years, we've seen an administration whose policies have stifled the American economy. It's extraordinary to think of it. We are in the midst of the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. We have, a few days now after Labor Day, we have the lowest labor participation rate in this country since the 1970s. Don't be deceived by the low unemployment rate. The truth is that there are millions and millions of men and women in this country who aren't counted in that number because they simply aren't looking for work anymore. And probably most heartbreaking of all, there are nearly 7 million more Americans living in poverty today than the day that Barack Obama became president of the United States. Well, their nominee, her plan, is more of the same. More taxes, more regulation, more Obamacare, and more of the war on American energy that has run our nation's economy into a ditch. Well, let me promise you, just as in those days that we celebrate and remember on these walls, we're about to elect a president who knows that the strength of the American economy is in the ingenuity and the freedom of the American people. And Donald Trump will empower the American people to revive this economy again. Donald Trump at the Detroit Economic Club, a place that Ronald Reagan used to like to speak, laid out a plan to revive our economy on those time-honored practices and principles. I always like to say conservative ideas work every time you try them. They work back in the Hoosier State, where we have more Hoosiers working than ever before, and they'll work again in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump's plan is going to sound familiar to some of you here in Reagan country. We're going to lower marginal rates on every American. We're going to end death taxes once and for all. We're going to lower the corporate tax rate so American businesses can compete with businesses around the world and keep jobs here. Reagan also knew what Donald Trump knows, and that is regulation is a form of taxation. So on day one, Donald Trump will do what we did in the Hoosier State. He's going to sign a moratorium on any new federal regulation, and he's going to repeal every single one of Barack Obama's job-killing executive orders. When Donald Trump becomes negotiator-in-chief, we're also going to have trade deals that work for American workers. We're going to make sure. Donald Trump and I both believe in free trade, but we believe in arm's-length transactions. We believe trade needs to be a win-win. We're going to renegotiate NAFTA to ensure that it works for the people of the United States. We're going to get out of these multinational deals like the TPP, and at the end of the day, we're going to hold our trading partners at last to the promises that they make when they sign a deal with the people of the United States of America. And lastly, the fact that we're running against someone who actually boasted. And I quote, if she was elected president, quote, "We will put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business," close quote. On day one of the Trump-Pence administration, we will end the war on coal once and for all, and we will unleash the boundless power of the natural resources of the United States of America. Let me speak to one other matter and then close and get to your questions. And that is on, we'll elect literally, as the calendar speaks today, on September the 8th, 2 months, November the 8th, we'll elect a president for the next 4 years. But it's so important for those of us that cherish the ideals and the legacies of Ronald Reagan to remember that while we're electing a president for the next 4 years, that president will likely set the course and direction of the Supreme Court of the United States for the next 40 years. And we need to think long and hard about that. Donald Trump, for his part, has made it clear. When he becomes President of the United States of America, from the Supreme Court on down, we will appoint to the federal judiciary men and women who will strictly construe the Constitution of the United States and not legislate from the bench. Ronald Reagan said it so well. And I quote, "The importance of judicial restraint, the belief of our founding fathers that the role of the judge is to interpret the law, not preempt the rights of the people and their legislatures by making the law." Judicial restraint, the role of the judge. You know, I've said throughout this speech that Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump had similar views on some key issues, similar ideals and similar backbone. But let me be very clear with you. After my 10 years on the Judiciary Committee on Capitol Hill, working in and around these issues for a lifetime, Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump's views on the Supreme Court are not similar, they are identical. And he will appoint justices that will make the Reagan tradition proud on our Supreme Court. And finally, one last point. You know, for too many in Washington, in the view of too many Americans, politics seems to have morphed into a rigged game of self-enrichment and cronyism. One great Democrat that I'm pretty sure Ronald Reagan admired, Harry Truman, put it this way, quote, "No young man should go into politics if he wants to get rich." Truman said, quote, "An honest public servant can't become rich in politics," close quote. Well, the Pences passed that test. Yet what do we see today? We see politicians enter office with modest means and they emerge as millionaires. Auctioning access, profiting off policies is anathema to the very spirit of public service. You know, in places like Allentown, Pennsylvania, Youngstown, Ohio, Fort Wayne, Indiana, people don't know how to work the system, they just know how to work. All they ask for is that chance. And in a Trump-Pence administration, we're going to make sure they have it. Americans are fed up with Washington's self-enrichment racket. I think that's why independents, Republicans, and many Democrats are reeling from the headlines that we see one day after another. Reagan knew what Donald Trump knows. We must have the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land, and we will when Donald Trump becomes President of the United States. So, 1980, 2016. Two different men, two different times, but so much seems familiar, does it not? The challenges that we face, the opportunity that we have. I cracked open that old book this morning, and I happened to land in Ecclesiastes that said millennia ago that there's nothing new under the sun. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. Boy, I sure hope so. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm very humbled to be in this place with you all. Charlotte and I had the great privilege of laying a wreath at the final resting place of this wonderful couple that changed our country and changed the world. It was an emotional moment for me. But I want to give you a word of encouragement as well. That something big is stirring in our country. And it's coming from the American people. I mean, the spirit of 1980 that propelled Ronald Reagan into the White House is alive and kicking again. I see it every day. I just joined this ticket a little more than 6 weeks ago, but I can tell you, campaigning with Donald Trump and for Donald Trump, I see in the faces of Americans in big cities and small towns an optimism, a determination that I think is going to turn this country around. I see it in the faces of the thousands that we meet on the campaign trail. People failed by an out-of-touch Washington elite. And I had a woman walk up to me just the other day, and she just said to me, "Thank you for running with Donald Trump. I can't wait to vote." It's 61 days from an opportunity we have to restore confidence to our people, to have America standing tall again, at home and abroad, to have an economy that's working for all of our people on a foundation of our Constitution and the high standards in public life that we all expect in this nation. But I have faith. I think we're going to do it. And it's not because of the polls. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the polls. I learned a long time ago, you get into a rough campaign, you got to turn on the television with a stick every morning. You with me? What's going to be there? But it's something else. And it was manifested in two conversations I'll close with. One with my running mate and one with the man whose name is on this building. The rest of that conversation with Ronald Reagan in 1988 happened in the East Room I did the little photo op thing with him for that 5 minutes, and got up, started breathing again. Then I walked into the East Room. My wife was waiting there with some other couples, or maybe 30 of us in the room. We were just to hold there and wait till the president departed, but he all of a sudden burst into the room. You might remember those days. He actually, I think, said, "I heard there were some ladies in here and I wanted to meet you all." Well, there was a great moment where my wife got to ask him a question. He got a few questions. He took a few questions from that little podium in the East Room. And several people asked about policies and important things. My wife raised her hand and said, "Where's Nancy?" And he really melted. Made a point to reach way over and shake her hand before he left the room. But he said something that day that I'll just never forget. So I guess a couple other people must have said to him what I'd said when I told him that I wanted to thank him for what he'd done for the country. Because before he left, he said, several of you made a point to thank me for what I'd done for this country for the last 8 years. It was August 1988. America had come roaring back. The Soviet Union was back on its heels. We were standing tall again at home and abroad. He said, several of you have thanked me for what I did for this country. And then he said, I want you to know I don't think I did anything for this country. He said, I think the American people decided to right the ship. And I was just the captain they put on the bridge when they did it. We were riding over to the convention. I think it was the night of his speech. And Donald Trump, ever the coach, ever the CEO, was sitting next to me. And he was saying to me, Mike, he said, we got a great opportunity here. We got a great opportunity for this country. And he said to me, but we're going to have to work. I felt like I was in a locker room. He said, we're going to have to go after it. We're going to have to roll our sleeves up. We're going to have to just make it happen. We're going to work on it. He goes, but we get to election day, and he said, we get this thing done with the American people. It's going to be great. And there was this confidence, this lilt in his voice, and I hadn't heard that since 1988 in the East Room. In both of these men, I just want to tell you, there's so much that's different in terms of their style and their background. But at the very core, both Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump are united in a boundless faith in the American people. And that's why I know in this moment that if all of us will do all that we can to elect this good man as the 45th President of the United States of America, if we put that new captain on the bridge, I know we will make America great again. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you for the honor of being here today.
Take one question. Sure. Just a remarkable speech, Governor. Thank you so much. We have time for one, maybe two questions if we go through this quickly. And, all right, we'll do two. No, that's fine, please, Governor. Some people were nice enough as they came through to write questions down, and so we've got a whole stack here, which we'll do the top two. The first, Governor, is would you propose a law or a rule that would prevent influence selling by anyone in government so a Clinton Foundation type fiasco does not happen again?
Well, Donald Trump has already laid out policies and plans. And we'll continue to lay out those plans with regard to individuals and their ability to advocate for foreign interests. I think it's one of the things that's so troubling about what we see unfurling and becoming more and more public every day, is that we're talking about, in large part, foreign contributors to the Clinton Foundation. I remember, and there's some school kids here, foreign interests and foreign contributors cannot participate in American politics under our law. And so the fact that there was a vehicle while she was Secretary of State for foreign companies and foreign interests and foreign individuals to donate to the Clinton Foundation, I think should be deeply troubling to every American. And then, thanks to the Associated Press, we found that more than half of the private meetings that the Secretary of State granted during her tenure as Secretary of State, 85 of the nearly more than 150 meetings were extended to people that had given millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, and in many cases foreign contributors. Senator Richard Lugar, who is an icon in Indiana and a man of enormous integrity, actually warned Secretary Clinton of this issue during her confirmation hearings and warned her against the interest that foreign companies and foreign individuals would have in contributing and seeking access and even favors through the Clinton Foundation. And I can just promise you, the days of the pay-to-play politics in Washington, D.C. are over the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States. Okay?
Second and final question, what is the biggest misconception about Donald Trump?
Someone came up to me the other day and they said, I've known Donald Trump for a long time and I really like him. And I said, I haven't known him very long at all, and I really like him. You know, we've had a chance to get to know the Trump family, our family did, even before this opportunity was extended to me. When they were considering a number of highly qualified men and women for this position, they graciously invited us to come and spend a weekend with them. Because we tend to make decisions as a family, as the Pence family, and the Trumps are the same way. I mean, to know Donald Trump is to know very, very quickly he loves his family and he loves this country. But I think one of the things that I was most touched by was his graciousness and his kindness. You know, he's, as I said at the Republican National Convention, you know, we have a larger-than-life nominee, very charismatic, and so they obviously wanted to balance the ticket. Right? But when we came out, Charlotte was with Karen and me when we went out and spent the weekend with them, and what we found is all of that energy is there in person. What you see is what you get with Donald Trump. I'll never forget my daughter said this. She might be mad if I quote her. But we got on the plane after we'd spent a whole weekend with him, and my daughter said, well, he was Trump the whole weekend, but he's so nice. You like that? Is that all right? He's got a kindness about him, a consideration about him. The ground is level around Donald Trump. I mean, here's a man who's built buildings to the sky.
And they are terrific. They have a great future. They'll be taking my job someday, and I'll be happy about it. In particular, though, I want to thank Mr. Ron Packard. Where is Ron? Is he here someplace? Yes, he is. Thank you, Ron. Fantastic job. And Ms. Deborah Mays, who has really done an incredible job. Deborah, thank you. Thank you. What a great job. for hosting us at this beautiful school. Today we're going to discuss one of the most important issues in this campaign, school choice. But before we do, I want to briefly discuss new revelations about Hillary Clinton's very famous emails. According to the FBI report, the FBI did not find that hostile foreign actors, and would think of this, it's so important, when they went around and were so vigilant, at least as far as this, but they found that hostile foreign actors gained access to the personal email accounts of individuals with whom Clinton was in regular contact, and in doing so, obtained emails sent to or received by Clinton on her personal account. And every time she talks about the subject, it's different. She's got to get her act together. Remember, Hillary Clinton was emailing about the drone program, among many other extremely sensitive matters. This is yet more evidence that Clinton is unfit to be your commander-in-chief. By the way, the whole country saw how unfit she was at the town hall last night, where she refused to take accountability for her failed policies in the Middle East that have produced millions of refugees, unleashed horror of radical Islamic terrorism all over, and made us less safe than ever before. Throughout it all, she put the country, and I mean the entire country, at risk in order to cover up her pay-for-play scandals as Secretary of State. These include scandals giving up uranium to Russia, doing favors for UBS Bank, and selling contracts to friends and family in Haiti. It's all about hiding criminal enterprise, and that's what it's about. As part of her criminal cover-up, Hillary's, and you know her staff, you know it well, you read about it all the time, you just read about it, and it's getting worse and worse. Hillary Clinton's staff deleted and digitally bleached, which is acid cleaned, her emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. That's after receiving, not before. That's after receiving. She gets a subpoena from the United States Congress, and she deletes and bleaches. She also, and her staff, destroyed some of her 13 different phones, but this time with a hammer. I've never done that. Then, when she was interviewed by the FBI, she claimed she couldn't remember important events 39 times. She couldn't even remember whether she was trained or handling classified information. Didn't remember anything about it. So if she really didn't remember, that's a problem. And if she did remember, that's a problem. She even said she didn't know what the letter C stood for, whether it was confidential, classified information, or something. All the while, as Hillary and Bill raked in millions of dollars from special interest, the world was falling apart. Hillary Clinton's policies produced ruin in Libya, Iraq, and Syria. Absolute ruin and death. She failed in Russia. She failed in China. She failed miserably in North Korea. Her policies unleashed ISIS, spread terrorism, and put Iran on a path to nuclear weapons, not to mention the ransom payments. Oh, those ransom payments. Remember 2 weeks ago, it was $400 million in cash. Well, yesterday we found out that in cash, it was $1.7 billion. These are unheard of. This is cash. This isn't wire transfer. This isn't check. This is cash, $1.7 billion. And then you say, is that going to terror or is that going to people's bank accounts? I actually think it's going to both. On top of it all, Hillary Clinton is trigger happy, totally trigger happy. She's raced to invade, intervene, and topple regimes. She believes in globalism, not Americanism. Everybody understands that. Last night, she even falsely said, no American died in Libya. Now, I heard that, and I said, could she have forgotten so quickly? Then she also falsely said there's no ground troops in Iraq, even though we have 5,000 military personnel there right now. Iraq is one of the biggest differences in this race. I opposed going in, and I did oppose it, despite the media saying no, yes, no. I opposed going in, and I opposed the reckless way Hillary Clinton took us out, along with President Obama, letting ISIS fill that big, terrible void. But I was opposed to the war from the beginning, long after my interview with Howard Stern. But 3 months before the Iraq War started, I said in an interview with Neil Cavuto that perhaps we shouldn't be doing it yet, and that the economy, these are quotes, that the economy, this was on live television, the economy is a much bigger problem as far as the president is concerned. This was before the war started by a very short distance. Then on March 25th of 2003, just after the war had started, just days after, just a little while after, I was quoted as saying, the war is a mess, and yet more evidence that I had opposed the war from the start. I said the war is a mess on television somewhere. In July of 2003, I said I would love to see New York City and some of our cities and some of the states of our nation get some of the money that's going toward Iraq and other places. Because you know, they really need it, and they need it badly. Well, I said that. We have numerous other quotes too, by the way, both before and shortly after. Then in August of 2004, very early in the conflict, extremely early in the conflict, right at the beginning, I made a detailed statement in an interview to Esquire magazine. So right at the beginning. And by the way, numerous honest reporters said, well, Trump may have said it at the beginning, and some said he did say it at the beginning because they had Cavuto's clip and other clips. But some said, well, you know, it doesn't matter because right at the beginning, he made very strong statements. This is many years ago. And here's what Esquire magazine said. This is a quote, an absolute quote. Look at the war in Iraq and the mess that we're in. This is right after the war started. I would never have handled it that way. Does anybody really believe that Iraq is going to be a wonderful democracy where people are going to run down to the voting box and gently put in their ballot, and the winner is happily going to step up and to lead the country? So innocently. I go, come on. 2 minutes after we leave, there's going to be a revolution. Pretty good. And the meanest, toughest, smartest, most vicious guy will take over. Well, that's going to be combinations of ISIS and Iran. Iran's taken over. They're taking over among the richest and largest oil reserves in the world. We let them do it. We let them do it. Should have never been in the war, but we should have never, ever gotten out of the war the way Barack Obama got us out, along with Hillary Clinton, because we opened it up for ISIS. So it continued. What was the purpose? This is me right at the beginning of the war, in an article. What was the purpose of this whole thing? What was the purpose? Hundreds and hundreds of young people are being killed. And what about the people coming back with no arms and with no legs? Not to mention the other side, all of those Iraqi kids who've been blown to pieces. And it turns out that all of the reasons for the war are just blatantly wrong. All this for nothing. All this for nothing. This was right at the beginning of the war. Then they see, I see the lies last night. Donald Trump was always in favor of the war in Iraq. That's why I had to do this. Because the media is so dishonest, so terribly dishonest, and you understand it, and you understand it. The media is so terribly dishonest, so I had to do this. I ended with, I would have been tougher on terrorism. Bin Laden would have been caught a long time ago before he was ultimately caught, prior to the downing of the World Trade Center. So this was right at the beginning, and those other statements were before the war even started. And the Howard statement was long before, and it was the first time anybody ever asked me about Iraq. And I said, I don't know. It was very, but that was superseded because before the war, much closer to the war, I gave statements that we shouldn't go in. And shortly thereafter, immediately thereafter, and honestly, a lot of reporters said, hey, right at the beginning, he made this statement. And that statement was a very major story in Esquire magazine. So I just wanted to set the record straight. There is so much lying going on. And Hillary Clinton lied last night about numerous things, including her email, but she also lied about this. Had I been in Congress at the time of the invasion, I would have cast a vote in opposition. For years I've been a critic of this kind of reckless foreign invasions and look, let's face it, interventions, that's what they are, that have been a hallmark of trigger-happy Hillary and her failed career. She's been a disaster. Here's the bottom line. I was a private citizen. I had no access to briefings or great intelligence surveys that she did. I had no access to anything as a private citizen. Frankly, nobody really cared too much about what I said. I'm doing business. I don't even know why I was asked the question. I guess because I was asked the question. That's who knows. But I didn't have access to all of the intelligence information that she did and everybody else did. But in Iraq, my judgment was right. And hers, with all of this information and all of this great intelligence information, was wrong, along with a lot of other people, in all fairness. It's a big mistake. Totally destabilized the Middle East. It was a big mistake. Death to so many people. Hillary Clinton is always complaining about what's wrong. I just watched her on the tarmac. She tried to make up for her horrible performance last night. It was a horrible performance. So she went on the tarmac and told more lies. But she's been there, remember this, she's always talking about things that she's going to do. But she's been there for more than 30 years. And she's never done anything about it, never done anything. And all you have to do is look at New York State. When she ran for senator, she said she will bring jobs back to New York State. It's a disaster. No jobs have come back. Jobs have left. New York State, upstate New York, and the areas that she was talking about, they are disasters. All you have to do is look at New York State. She said she was going to bring tremendous jobs back. It will be wonderful, just like she's saying now. She wouldn't know how to bring a job back. She wouldn't have a clue. So it's all talk, but nothing happens. And that's what's going to happen with our country on jobs. And nobody is going to bring jobs back like Donald Trump. I will be the greatest jobs-producing president that God ever created. And I say that with my pastors in the front row. With my pastors, believe me. So we're on track now to spend, listen to this, $6 trillion. $6 trillion. Could have rebuilt our country twice. All together on wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle East. Meanwhile, massive portions of our country are in a state of total disrepair. It's time to to rebuild America. And when I say that, we will also, before we get totally started, we will take out ISIS. Remember that. We have no choice. We have no choice. Too many Americans living in our inner cities have not been included in the American dream. We are a nation, and we're one nation. When any part of our country hurts, our whole country hurts. My goal as president will be to ensure that every child in this nation, African American, Hispanic American, all Americans, will be placed on the ladder to success. And I define that as great education and a great job. The ladder rests on a fundamental foundation. We need safety. There's such danger in our inner cities. There's such danger in our communities. In order to help our children succeed, our first duty is to ensure that every kid in America can grow up in a safe community. You read what's happening. You see what's happening. You can't have prosperity without security. This is the new civil rights agenda of our time. The right to a safe community, a quality education, and a wonderful job. Including for those great students that I met just a little while ago. They're going to do great. They are really doing great. You've done such a great job with the education here. Our campaign represents the long-awaited chance to break with the bitter failures of the past and to embrace a new and strong American future. There's no failed policy more in need of urgent change than our government-run education monopoly. And you know in the back, that's exactly what it is. They're protecting a lot of people that have a lot of really high-paying jobs, and they're not doing the jobs like Deborah, that I can tell you. And Deborah, they're making a lot more money than you, but we'll have to talk about that later, right? The Democratic Party has trapped millions of African American and Hispanic youth in failing government schools that deny them the opportunity to join the ladder of American success. It's time to break up that monopoly. Have to do it. I want every single inner city child in America who is today trapped in a failing school to have the freedom, the civil right, to attend the school of their choice. Their parents will choose the finest school. They will attend that school. This includes private schools, traditional public schools, magnet schools, and charter schools, which must be included in any definition of school choice. Our government spends more than enough money to easily pay for this initiative, with billions and billions of dollars to be left over. It's simply a matter of putting students first, not the education bureaucracy, and that's what's happened.
That's right.
Let's run through the numbers. At the state and federal level, the United States spends more than $620 billion on K-12 education each year. That's an average of about $12,296 for every student enrolled in our elementary and secondary public schools. The federal government pays for about 10% of the K-12 costs. The other roughly $560 billion spent on K-12 education comes from the states themselves. We spend more per student than almost any other major country in the world, and we're doing very poorly in terms of a list. We spend more by far, and we're doing very poorly. So obviously, Common Core does not work, all right? Our largest cities spend some of the largest amounts of money on public schools. It's the biggest costs. New York City spends $20,226 per pupil. Baltimore spends $15,287 per student. Chicago spends $11,976 per student, and Los Angeles, it's $10,602. Just imagine if each student in these school systems was given a scholarship for this amount of money, allowing them and their family to choose the public or private school of their choice. Wouldn't that be great? Not only would this empower families, but it would create a massive education market that is competitive and produces better outcomes, and I mean far better outcomes. These schools would then cater to the needs of the individual student and family, not the needs, which is a
And it looks like we temporarily lost our feed. Give me a moment to try to get it back. I apologize for the inconvenience. It looks like we temporarily lost our feed. So I'm going to work to get that feedback up and running for you. This is Donald Trump out of Ohio. He's heading into school of your choice. That's something that's very important to him and has been throughout his time on the campaign trail, wanting to make sure people have the freedom to choose where their kids are educated. And he actually just wrapped up kind of a scathing reaction to some of Hillary Clinton's accusations about him this morning. If you can, I just uploaded that video separately on our YouTube page in case you missed it. Again, a scathing reaction to Hillary Clinton, who did a press conference. Oh, we lost it. So yuck. All right. So it looks like we've lost the feed. Let me see what I can do to get it back for you.
child to be able to choose the local public, private, or charter school, a magnet school, any of these schools that is best for them and for their family, for mom and dad. Each state will develop its own formula, but we want the dollars to follow the student. So important. The dollars will follow the student, and the student will follow the right school. They're going to follow the right school. $9 and $10 spent on K-12 education is spent at the state and local level. To achieve this long-term goal, we will have to make this a shared national mission to bring hope to every child in every city in this land, in our country, in our great country. I will use the pulpit of the presidency to campaign for this in all 50 states, and I will call upon the American people to elect officials at the city, state, and federal level who support school choice. So important. My administration will partner with the leadership of inner city, and I mean any one of them, any inner city in America, Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, Cleveland. We love Cleveland. We love Cleveland. Had a great experience in Cleveland, that's all I know. And by the way, your police department did a phenomenal job during the convention. And that's any city that is willing to run a pilot program to provide school choice to every child in that community. In Baltimore, for instance, that would mean more than $15,000 in funds available per student. Can't beat that. I'm confident that the politicians will not be able to suppress the will of the people anymore. It's too much, too strong. Eventually they break. They're politicians. They always break. They certainly break on trade for our country. We don't make any good deals, right? They break on an hourly basis. If we can put a man on the moon, dig out the Panama Canal, and win 2 world wars, then I have no doubt that we as a nation can provide school choice to every disadvantaged child in America. If the states collectively contribute another $110 billion of their own education budgets towards school choice, on top of the $20 billion in federal dollars, that could provide $12,000 in school choice funds to every single K-12 student who today is living in poverty. The money will follow the student. That means the student will be able to attend the public, private, charter, or magnet school of their choice, and each state will develop its own system that works best for them. They're going to develop systems the likes of which you've never seen. And some states will do better than others. And then you're going to get those people to come to your state. And then other things will be happening. It'll be so exciting. And it's not really a question of the money, because we'll be saving money and having a far better education. As your president, I will be the nation's biggest cheerleader for school choice. I understand many stale old politicians will resist. Got a lot of pressure. They've got a lot of pressure on them. But it's time for our country to start thinking big and correct once again. We spend too much time quibbling over the smallest words when we should spend our time dreaming about the great adventures that lie ahead. I will also support merit pay for teachers, the great teachers, so that we reward our best teachers instead of the failed tenure system that rewards bad teachers and punishes the good ones, and the bad ones are making the same money and sometimes more than the good ones. Can't have that. At the same time, we have to ensure that jobs are waiting for our young kids when they graduate high school and college. My policy will add millions of new jobs to our country, especially for African American and Hispanic communities. We're going to do such a great job. My plan to lift restrictions on the production of American energy will not only make home energy bills a lot cheaper, your electric bills will be a lot less, but it will add an estimated 500,000 jobs per year. By reducing radical regulations and overtaxation, we're bringing your taxes way down, we can bring thousands of new companies into our poorest communities. Crucially, my trade reforms will create a manufacturing revival in America. As you know, all of your companies, Cleveland is a great example, but your companies are being ripped out of your community, and your people are being left jobless, and your government's being left with no taxes. We have a nearly $800 billion, think of that, $800 billion annual trade deficit with the world. We trade with the world. We have a trade deficit of $800 billion. Who's negotiating these deals? Who's doing it? Yeah, that's actually very good. Hillary Clinton is absolutely a good answer. Hillary Clinton and people like Hillary Clinton that haven't got a clue, and the clue they do have goes to their donors and the special interests, believe me. That's money coming straight out of the states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Maine and so many others. I've seen so many. It's so sad. When I campaigned during the primaries, I saw everything. And it was so sad to see communities that have just been left jobless, where the companies have moved to other countries, Mexico in particular, but other countries. By ending foreign currency manipulation, product dumping, and other predatory trading practices, we will be able to open thousands of new plants and factories across America. In driving over today, I passed so many places, factories. 20, 30 years ago, they were thriving. And they're just dead, worthless. A real estate person, you wouldn't pay anything. Worthless. We'll put them back into action again. The future is filled with limitless possibilities for our nation and exciting opportunities for our wonderful children. We all have to do, and we just have to work. We all have to work. But we all have to cut our ties with the failed politics of the past. You have to cut your ties. Have to cut your ties. These are the people that put us in this situation. They're not going to take us out. They're not going to take us out. That includes in wars. I mean, Hillary Clinton created a lot of the problems, and now she's saying how she's going to take us out. She doesn't have a clue. Not even a little clue. We've had such a failed foreign policy with the people we have now. A failed education policy, a totally failed economic policy, and underneath it all, a failed political system that rewards politicians for how many donors they have or how many journalists they know, not how many Americans they help to live better and more prosperous lives. That's how they get rewarded. They'll talk to you and talk to you. They'll come into Cleveland. She'll be saying what a wonderful job she's going to do. She'll get your vote. Then she'll say, see you in 4 years. She might even say, see you in 4 years, suckers. Because that's what it is. See you in 4 years, suckers. But the failures of the past are about to end. That ending begins on a very special date for this country, November 8th. Get out and vote. We will have one American nation. We will be one American people. We're fighting to give every child in every forgotten stretch of this country the chance to live out their dreams in safety and in peace. That means a safe neighborhood, a quality education, and a secure, high-paying, and exciting job. We only have bad jobs. We don't have good jobs anymore. Many of our good jobs have left. They're gone. This is how we will rebuild our future. This is how we will make America great again for everyone. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Cleveland. Thank you.
Cosby was communicating with police by email about what Cosby's representative called, quote, agitators, end quote. As a result of these events, I filed a lawsuit on November 18th, 2015 in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, Atlanta Division, against Cobb County, Georgia, and the Cobb Marietta Coliseum and Exhibit Hall Authority, alleging that my First Amendment rights and due process rights and the rights of other Bill Cosby protesters were violated when we were denied the right to view and listen to Mr. Cosby's performance without justification or explanation, wholly on account of our viewpoints about Mr. Cosby. I was seeking a court order which enjoined the defendants from carrying out the center's viewpoint-based censorship admissions policy. Today, we're able to announce a successful settlement of this case. In the settlement, the defendants agreed to a consent order which states in part, quote, that so long as a person does not pose an immediate and objective threat to the safety of others, any member of the public holding a ticket for the listed public performance at the center may attend the show. That in certain circumstances the authority can deny entry to a person if it objectively appears that the person imminently will disrupt the performance. A person who states, quote, I will not disrupt the performance, end quote, for example, is not someone who can be objectively determined as such a threat. A policy of allowing public performers discretion to exclude private citizens on any or no basis is not narrowly tailored to achieve any legitimate governmental interest in protecting the performer's right to speak. That the authority will not delegate to a performer the right to ban people from attending public performances in the center. That the authority will enter into a consent order to be in effect for 1 year, subsequent to its effective date, end quote. And that's right out of the consent order, which, by the way, was signed by the federal judge today. The defendants have agreed that the consent order will be an order of the federal court. That means that if it is not complied with in accordance with the terms of the settlement, that I could seek to hold the defendants in contempt of court. In addition, Cobb Marietta Coliseum and Exhibit Hall Authority agreed to pay $40,000 for my damages, attorney's fees, and costs. This extremely successful outcome would not have been possible without the outstanding legal advocacy of Georgia civil rights attorney Carrie Wiggins, who is here with me today. Mr. Wiggins, who represented me in this matter, recognized the importance of this case and these issues as soon as I contacted him. He knew the government had no right to punish me or other protesters by excluding us from the Bill Cosby Far From Finished show solely on account of our expressed viewpoint about Mr. Cosby. In other words, he agreed that my constitutional right to free speech was violated when I was refused admission to the Bill Cosby Far From Finished show, when I had a ticket and indicated that I would not disrupt it. I'm very grateful for Mr. Wiggins' excellent representation of me, which led to this successful outcome. With this settlement, we have achieved a victory not only for me, but also for other protesters who wish to exercise their right of free speech about other performers in the future. Government may not delegate to Bill Cosby or any other performer the right to ban ticket holders from attending a public performance at the Cobb Energy Center simply because the performer does not like the viewpoint of the ticket holders' free speech. I am very glad that we have achieved everything that we have sought to do when we filed this lawsuit. And I'm pleased that we have achieved a result that will protect others in the exercise of their free speech in the future. And before we hear from Mr. Wiggins, this is a copy of the consent order that was signed today by the federal judge. And he signed it actually this morning. And that's the Honorable Judge Timothy C. Batten, Sr., who is the judge of the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. So it is now a court order. In other words, the settlement agreement has been reduced to and made a court order, and it must not be violated. Mr. Wiggins.
Sure. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you all for being here. Like my client, Ms. Gloria Allred, I am very pleased with the outcome of this case. Working for and with Ms. Allred has been both an education and a delight. As a civil rights attorney, I am drawn to helping those who are not getting a fair shake from a more powerful player. I cannot name a living civil rights attorney who has achieved more success in vindicating the civil rights of individuals than Gloria. It has been my honor to work for her. I want to thank the Cobb Energy Center, its executives, its attorneys for their professionalism in resolving this case. I truly mean that. I am confident that the result we achieved is good for all parties, meaning Ms. Allred and the Cobb Energy Center. The result, in fact, is one that has the best interests of all citizens in mind. Thank you.
And I'm happy to answer any questions about this or anything else.
Gloria,
Yes, Rodney.
How many protesters tried to get into the... Did you know how many people tried to get in and didn't get in besides you?
There were others. Do you know the number?
How many were on the list? They had a list. I saw
They did have a list.
There were roughly 77 to 80 names on the list.
You want to move over to the...
Sure. I think there were almost 80 names on the list with pictures.
Right.
And then I think that less than a dozen were turned away, tried to get in and were turned away.
One of them was one of them was a Cosby accuser, and she was with me at the time. Right. She was my client. Of course, there's also a recording that was done by the police of my conversation with the police officer as he told me that I would not be allowed to enter. And we were able to obtain that, and we have that. We played that at the press conference when we filed the lawsuit, but we have it again. If anybody wants to hear it, we'll be able to make that available to you. But it confirms everything that I said about being denied entry and threatened with being arrested for criminal trespass if I tried to go in. And that it was because my name was on the list.
Through the lawsuit or the night of the incident, did Cobb County offer an explanation on why that would be removable in the first place since he got a ticket?
Carrie, since
The short answer is no. She was on the list. She was not going to pass go. That's it. And through our investigation, we unearthed why that was so. Essentially, the program was that the Energy Center was delegating to the performers the right to pick who can come in and who has to stay out.
Yeah. And, you know, for example, we have an email. There were emails from Mr. Cosby's representatives to the police and then asking for phone calls and with security and police and so forth, back and forth. And it indicated that they were concerned about agitators and that they had been monitoring social media. So I guess if I'm called an agitator, I mean, that's like not the worst thing I've ever been called. I'm happy to be called that. I do agitate against injustice and on behalf of free speech and constitutional rights. I've been doing that for 40 years as a lawyer.
With your 33 plaintiffs, how do you feel about how the Cosby case is progressing?
I don't actually represent 33 plaintiffs. I represent 33 accusers of Mr. Cosby. One of those accusers is Judy Huth, and we are litigating a civil lawsuit on her behalf. So she is a plaintiff, and that lawsuit, which is currently pending in Los Angeles County Superior Court, alleges that Ms. Huth was 15 years old when she became the victim of sexual misconduct by Mr. Cosby. So it's an allegation of child sexual abuse, and of all the lawsuits against Mr. Cosby, we're the only ones to have been permitted to have taken his deposition, which we did. And that's under a protective order, however, so I'm not at liberty to say what he said under oath in that deposition. We're the only ones who have been able to take it since he provided his deposition in the Andrea Constant civil case, which was settled. And then now Ms. Constant, of course, is the alleged victim in the criminal case now pending in Pennsylvania. We have also made a motion to compel a second deposition of Mr. Cosby. And the court, over Mr. Cosby's attorney's objection, did order that Mr. Cosby must appear for a second deposition in our case on behalf of Ms. Huth. However, the court has stayed the taking of the second deposition until the conclusion of the criminal case. Judge Neal in Pennsylvania just 2 days ago set a trial date for the criminal case for June 2017. We're going to be back to court on our case in LA on September 20th this year, basically to give the court a status report and update on our case. And we are vigorously litigating the case against Mr. Cosby. We've taken a number of depositions to date.
Do you feel that the case in Pennsylvania, if moving forward to trial, will help push your case forward in Los Angeles?
Well, they are separate cases. We're going to have to await the outcome of the criminal case in Pennsylvania before we can proceed to complete discovery in our case. But the court in our case has indicated that he would like us to be able to go to trial next year.
Hi, so if you're still watching for some reason, this is Kinsey, ABC 15. I wear a lot of hats around here, and now I'm getting ready to produce the Let Joe Know show on our Facebook, for Facebook Live, so I totally forgot to shut off this stream. You're important to me, I promise. But the visuals you're looking at is us setting up for Let Joe Know. So I'm going to let you go now. I'm going to shut down this live feed and head over there and get everything ready to go for Let Joe Know. If you'd like to watch, head on over to ABC 15's Facebook page and you can see Let Joe Know over there. So thanks so much for tuning in to Trump coverage this afternoon. I'll bring you more whenever we have it. And I will see you later.